Next, we head to CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference in Washington, D.C., and listen to a speech from Governor John Kasich and later his sit-down interview with Fox News' Sean Hannity. This runs about 35 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's great to be here at CPAC. I came as, I think, as state senator many years ago. I've always loved to come to CPAC, and it's great to be here today in a little different situation. And so why don't we get to it? And I want to tell you, we've got a lot of young people here, so I want to make sure that I have a few words for all of you, because you're sitting out here and you're wondering, this guy's on the stage, could it be me? You know, any young man or woman that's here today, of course it can. Just have big hopes and big dreams. But I want to tell you that I have been very lucky in my life. You see, in 1976, there was almost a brokered convention. And it was at that time that I got to meet Ronald Reagan. And I want to tell you about it. I'd knock on people's doors at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. They'd come answering their doors like, why are you banging on my doors? I said, I need to get Ronald Reagan on the ballot. Just sign the ballot and I'll go away. And the fact is, we got him on the ballot, and then I was at the convention with Governor Reagan, and I had, at a very young age, found myself in charge of 5 states for Governor Reagan. And he lost that convention, but I was also up there when he told people at the end, he said, you know, I may have lost the battle, but I have not lost the war. And he came back, of course, 4 years later, and he kicked down the door, because you need to understand something about Ronald Reagan. The establishment never liked him. They never liked Reagan. They never liked Newt Gingrich, and they don't like me. Why? Because we're change agents. That's why. Because we want to bring change to the way this country works. And we don't take orders from lobbyists or special interests or people who live on K Street. We're here to try to serve the country. So Reagan was an incredible man because he had a strong ideology, conservative philosophy. Government as a last resort, not as a first resort. And I was honed in that as a very young man. In 1982, I ran for Congress. I was 30 years of age, and I ran on the Reagan philosophy: lower taxes, balanced budgets, economic growth, common sense regulations. And in 1982, nobody wanted to appear with Ronald Reagan. It was great, because that meant I got to spend more time with Ronald Reagan. And he came and campaigned for me in Ohio. And in 1982, running on Reagan principles of tax cuts and less spending and less regulation and individual power, the strength and the power of the individual, in 1982, I was the only Republican in America to defeat an incumbent Democrat running on a conservative message. I also shared, of course, Ronald Reagan's philosophy on building a strong defense. And I want you to know, when I'm president and I sit across the chair or the table from Vladimir Putin, when he looks into my eyes all the way to my soul, you know what he'll see? A freedom fighter. That's what Putin will see. So I went to Congress and participated in the military buildup, but I also have to tell you that I also found waste and abuse inside the Department of Defense, and I fought it. You know why? We can't squander resources. We have to make sure that the resources we spend on defense get to our men and women in uniform on the front lines and doesn't get squandered by bureaucrats or defense contractors that are not playing fair. And then 6 years into my term as a congressman, I got on the budget committee. And there were people that, that said, well, we can kind of manage this budget. And I looked at the Republican budget and the Democrat budget, and I didn't think either of them were worth the paper they were printed on. And I was at home filling my Jeep up at the gas tank, and I was complaining. A guy walked around the corner. He said, if you don't like what's going on in Washington, what are you going to do about it? So I flew to Washington, got a meeting with all of my staff, and I said, we're going to write a budget for the United States of America. And they said, well, but there's 100 people down at the White House and 100 people on Capitol Hill who are writing budgets, and we only have 6 people. I said, I know we're overstaffed, but if we stay out of each other's way, we can get it done. My first budget was voted on. There was a Bush budget, there was a Democrat budget, a Black Caucus budget, and a Kasich budget. And the vote on the Kasich budget was 405 no and 30 yes. And some people thought we got killed. I said, oh, we got 29 other people that think we can run America. Let's just keep going. And year after year after year, I fought the establishment. I fought the establishment because they wanted the status quo. My third budget, I got more votes than the president got for his. And I was building a team of people. And in 1993, when Bill Clinton wanted to propose a tax increase, I said we should have an alternative. And the Republicans said, oh no, let's just criticize. I said, I didn't come to Washington to criticize, I came to build something. We had a meeting, there were 36 people who spoke in the Republican conference, 34 said we shouldn't have an alternative, and 2 said that we should. I walked to the back of the room with Newt. I said, Newt, how do you think we're doing? He said, well, we're doing a little better than I thought we'd be doing. And we offered that budget that year. And Joe Scarborough just says repeatedly on his show, it was the fighting that was going on to balance the federal budget without political considerations that got him involved in politics. We swept the victory in 1994, and we took control for the first time in 40 years in 1995 with a conservative agenda. And we went through the ups and downs. In the Clinton administration, I mean, Bill Clinton never wanted to balance the budget. Clinton's the kind of a guy that if a mob is coming at him, he gets in the front of it and calls it a parade, okay? So we fought like crazy. Now, why was I for a balanced budget? Because I like numbers? Are you kidding me? You see, balancing budgets and cutting regulation and reducing taxes are about economic opportunity and job creation. And in that budget agreement that we made with the Clinton administration, where we forced them, and they were for nothing real, and they were for higher taxes, we cut the capital gains tax, we provided a family tax credit, and we achieved the first balanced budget since man walked on the moon. We paid down $500 billion of the national debt, and guess what? America's economy was booming. People had jobs, wages were growing, and then it was time for me to leave this place. Frankly, I'm glad we're not in D.C., because every time I go there, I break into a cold sweat. But the fact is that formula worked, and I stepped out of politics thinking I would never go back. But my state was in so much trouble. We had lost 350,000 jobs. Our credit was about to be downgraded. 20% of our operating budget was in the hole, and I ran on a campaign saying not only would we balance the budget, we would cut taxes. And people said it couldn't be done. Well, you see, if you know what you're doing, and you don't worry about who's yapping at you or criticizing you or complaining, it's amazing what you can get done. And guess where we are today? Instead of being $8 billion in the hole, we're $2 billion in the black. Instead of being down 350,000 jobs, we're up over 400,000 jobs. Our pensions are safe, our credit is good, and our wages are growing faster than the national average, and people have hope in Ohio. Now, let me tell you all something else. There's always a lot of question. Is Kasich a conservative? Well, I only reformed welfare, balanced the federal budget, cut taxes, promoted more school choice with charter schools and obviously the voucher program, more than about anybody. We're reforming welfare again. We have shrunken the state of Ohio's employment to the lowest in state government in 30 years. Get over it. Okay, get over it. But let me tell you this. See, I come from the Reagan and Kemp school. When our economies are doing better, we have an obligation to reach out to those people who live in the shadows, to give them an opportunity to achieve their God-given potential. And that means the mentally ill. The mentally ill should not be sleeping under a bridge or living in our prisons. They have a right to be treated, to get on their feet and assume their God-given purpose. The drug addicted can be rehabbed, and in our state, We have an 80% success rate in treating people in the prisons and putting them in the community where we give them responsibility to get on their feet, and the working people, the working poor in this country. Isn't it time that we reward them for working hard and getting a pay raise rather than to have to turn it down because they lose more benefits than they gain? Let's get back to what makes sense to give everybody a chance to rise. We want our developmentally disabled to be fully integrated, and we're working towards that. And let me just tell you one other thing. Our friends in the minority community, we want them to develop entrepreneurship. We want them to believe that they're as a part of America as anybody else that lives in this country. So I ran for re-election in Ohio, one of the toughest states to win. I won 86 out of 88 counties, 26% of the African-American vote, 60% of women, and 51% of union households, and I won by 30 points in Ohio. Bringing people together works. Now, a message to the, well, it's a message for everyone, but particularly to the young people who are here today. Here's what it is. Here's what it is. You should all know, this is my present to you, that you were all made special. No one has ever been made like you, and no one ever will. You see, I believe that the Lord makes us special for a special purpose. Do you understand that, young lady? You've been made special for a special purpose. And you have gifts that no one has. No one is quite like you because you are made special. And your job is to find those gifts and to live a life bigger than yourself and change the world in which you live. And you see, the Lord doesn't care whether you're running for president or whether you're helping somebody who's in a hospital with a family who's depressed, or making sure that no one gets bullied, or making sure you're there to listen to one of your friends who may be having a hard time. You see, the Lord doesn't measure us one against the other. One big task, the other one is little. They're all equal in His eyes. And you are made special to come together as a generation, as like part of a giant mosaic. And when you lose that sight, or when you never find it, the mosaic remains incomplete. But when we as a society decide that we can use those tools, and let me tell you, the strength of our country and the spirit of our country does not rest in Washington. Oh yeah, the big wigs, listen, I can get our budget balanced, I can get the wages growing, I can get the border fixed, I can get the Social Security, I can do those things. I know how to do them. But you see, it's a two-part issue. It's not just what happens up here, but the strength of our country, the vitality of our country, the spirit of our country rests in our families, our neighborhoods, our communities, and our states. Don't wait for somebody to show up to fix the problems where you are. Fix them yourself. And I'm counting on you two guys. For some reason, we think we have to wait for somebody in the government to come in on a big white charger to solve our problems. It will not happen. Oh, I'm going to give you your power. Send education, welfare, infrastructure, health care for the poor, job training, all back to where we live. And you'll have more power. We're going to cut taxes because we have to run America from the bottom up. That's what we have to do. That's what works. But you know, the greatness of our country is not waiting for another government program. Some of them are important, okay? Some of them are important. But you know how we really fix things in America? When we put our shoulder to the wheel to make our schools work better, when we fight drug abuse in our communities, you got to tell a kid, don't you be doing those drugs. You obscure your purpose, your God-given purpose. You got to stand up and fight against poverty in your community and get businesses in to work with people who are on welfare, to get them trained so they can get work. We need to encourage young people, you adults who are out here, join a mentoring program. Get kids to see their future. Don't leave them behind. See, these things don't take government. They take us believing in ourselves And the little town where I came from, in McKees Rocks, we didn't wait for the president. We didn't wait for anybody. We were neighbors, and we took care of one another. And if we do it again, we'll fix the programs up here that the federal officials need to fix, without regard to politics, by the way, with good conservative principles. But when that power comes back, you take care of your job. And by the way, if I need you to help me break through these problems in Washington, I'll give you a call. And if you need me, I'll come running to your neighborhood. Let's make a deal, okay? And we'll rebuild America and its spirit and make it the best it has ever been. We can do it, and we will do it. Thank you all. Thank you. Now, I have a friend that's going to come out here, and he's going to help me. Oh, here's an old buddy of mine.
Hello, CPAC!
Have a seat. Which one you want?
I want to get to your right.
Yeah, he takes the right seat and makes me the left. This is the first time I've been on the left my whole life. How are you, Governor?
Couldn't be better. This is exciting, isn't it? But, I mean, there's so much energy. The young people here, Sean, as you know, having hopes and dreams and goals and not becoming cynical and not becoming some political hack and to believing that the world can be just what you think it can be, it's fantastic.
Isn't it great to see all these young people, though, and this is why the election's so important, because it's about their future, right?
Absolutely correct.
Now, you had the big debate last night. I have a few process questions. I know you don't like them. You even said it last night. Well, it's my job. This is what I get paid for. You're the only one on the stage that didn't get a nickname from Donald Trump. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine. Yes. Who knows what kind of a nickname he'd give me?
Yeah, you never know.
Right?
You know, I want to get your response, and because I think it's on the minds of many of us here. We had this speech by Mitt Romney yesterday. You supported Mitt Romney. I supported. How many people in this room supported Mitt Romney? Everybody. And I was a little disappointed because what it sounded like was a strategy to me, and I like him. I thought he would have been a great president. Sounded like a strategy to, John Kasich win Ohio, Rubio win Florida, Ted Cruz win the states that he can. And it seems like they're trying to create as much chaos rather than let the system work out on its own. How does that make you feel? Because you're, in that sense, you're part of their strategy to make that come about and have a floor fight at the convention.
Well, Sean, you got to leave it to the voters to decide what they want. I mean, I don't take any strategy from anybody. I mean, I kind of, my wife, I get strategy from her, not so much about politics, but that's where I get my orders from. Sean, I would say that, look, let me say something about Donald Trump. You will not beat him by smearing him. You will beat him by having a vision and a record that shows people who are frustrated. So who are they, Sean? You know who they are. They're the underemployed.
I'm one. I'm frustrated.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the underemployed, the ones that think they're going to lose their jobs. Their kids will go to college and they're living in the basement because they can't get a good job. They think that, look, there's so many insecurities out there, and I get it. I grew up in that town. You grew up there, right? The key is who's got the record and the vision, and not just political gibberish like, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It's, I've already done these things. I just want to go back and do them again to get the country moving. So,
but I want to talk about your record because I think that's,
Sean, let me ask these people here. You like a positive campaign instead of negative, huh?
I'm frustrated for two reasons, because you're right, because a lot of kids are doing the right thing. They get their education, they go home, and they live in mom and dad's basement because there's no jobs available. 95 million Americans out of the labor force, 50 million in poverty, 46 million on food stamps. But here's where I'm even more frustrated, Governor. Republicans in Washington, I'm not talking about Republican governors. I know your record in Ohio. But Republicans in Washington have been weak, they have been feckless, they have been ineffective, they have they have sought to keep their own power, they wouldn't use the power of the purse to stop Obamacare and defund it. They wouldn't defund executive amnesty. Are you all frustrated about that, like I am? So I think that's part of the frustration, and I know that I think people want to hear from you about why people feel as angry as they do.
Well, I think they keep electing people and they're not getting what's promised. So I have to be very careful to not make promises that I can't keep. But here's what I believe, Sean. Look, the reason why we have a poor economy is we overregulate, we're choking small business, we're raising taxes, and we're blowing up the budget. So what do you do to fix it? Common sense regulations with an eye on rewarding small businesses. Secondly, cut the taxes for businesses. That's why they're leaving. And secondly, cut individual rates. Make it simpler, like Reagan had. I basically have the Reagan plan. And then have a path to a balanced budget. And when all the special interests come yelling and screaming, say, hey, tough, we're going to get this country moving. Because if we don't do those three things and work on workforce, we're going to fall short. Here's what the Congress needs. It needs a dose of leadership from the White House and then through. And Paul Ryan is going to be a good one. Paul Ryan will be a guy that I can, look, Paul Ryan used to be an aide when I was Budget Committee Chairman, okay? And I can't wait to get there. And I'll tell you what, if you don't have a seatbelt in the first 100 days, I'm going to give them a plan to freeze federal regulations, reduce taxes on businesses and individuals. We're going to have a plan to balance the budget. We're going to fix Social Security. We're going to fix the border. We're going to have immigration taken care of. I'm going to restore our relations with our allies. And that's what we're going to do in the first 100 days. So buy a seatbelt. We need shock and awe down there.
I like shock and awe.
We need shock and awe. We need to say to the Congress, this is where we're going. Let's get together. And by the way, when I talk about working with Democrats, I worked with the Blue Dogs. They were more conservative than a bunch of Republicans.
They don't exist. They're an extinct species.
Any of those Blue Dog types that want to come and bring a conservative side to support us to fix these problems, they're welcome. Okay, but they're not going to call the tune.
Let me ask you this. We've had 15 contests. Walk the people in this audience your path that you see that will get you the nomination to 1,237 delegates.
Well, I don't think anybody's going to get that. I'm going to win Ohio, and then we're going to...
So you think it's going to be a brokered convention?
I do. And let me also tell you, let me just put you in my shoes. Nobody covered me. No one knew who I was. They didn't call on me in the debates. I had to fight for every second. I haven't raised a lot of money. I'm now doing a lot better. Couldn't get any attention. They thought he'll never get on the stage for a debate. Then they said he'll never make it to New Hampshire. Then he said he wouldn't survive Super Tuesday. And then, look at where we are. I'm the last governor standing. There's only 4 of us, and we're the little engine that can. So believe in us. And now finally, the country is getting to get a little bit of who I am. I love this tonight. I'll take this every day as compared to one of those debates, okay? This is the way we ought to run it. Come out and talk to people and tell them what you're for.
Well, let's go through your scenario. If you think it's going to be a brokered convention.
I do.
All right, so there are people in this room that support you, but there are also people in this room that support Ted Cruz.
Yeah, of course.
And Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. So... at the end of let's say you get to the convention and candidate A, I won't mention a name, is close to 1237,
yeah,
but he doesn't get there. And candidate B is kind of significantly behind. Do you think with a brokered convention that candidate A's supporters are going to be angry if candidate B, C, or D gets the nomination?
Well,
I think they're going to be angry.
Well, Sean, it has to be done fairly. And, I was there, as a really young man in '76 when Governor Reagan tried to beat Jerry Ford. At the end, everybody got together. It worked out. But look, as crazy as this year is, and there's nobody in here that wouldn't say this is like nuts, right? Can you think of anything cooler than a convention where we're all going to learn about how America works, and our kids in school will learn more about American politics than the Kardashians? Not that I have anything against the Kardashians, but the fact is, Sean, you have to do it right, and you can't have a bunch of people in smoke-filled rooms who are the establishment, by the way, and you and I never been the establishment.
No,
never, okay? And my only fear of a convention is that these kind of connected interests would dominate, and we're going to have to prevent
But I'm
that.
a little concerned that you think your only path to the nomination is through a broker
Well, look, I
convention.
have to win. It's not impossible. I have to win. After I win Ohio, I have to win 68% of the remaining delegates. Marco's got to win like 64, and Ted is somewhere around 59 or 60. It's unlikely. And so if he goes to the convention with enough delegates, then we're going to have to meet in. By the way, they told me the convention's going to be held in Cleveland. That's kind of interesting.
Place close to home. All right. I want to talk about your background and experience. I actually think there's some truth to what you say that a lot of people didn't know you. And maybe I'm showing my age here, but I remember you and Pete Domenici and Bill Clinton was president.
And Newt.
Newt Gingrich became the Speaker of the House. And you guys took on a sitting president. You did get to a balanced budget. You did get to a surplus.
Reform welfare.
But now we have $20 trillion in debt,
That's right.
$120 trillion in unfunded liabilities. The numbers are much bigger. Can you do
Oh,
that?
of course.
How do you duplicate
Let
that?
me just remind you of something that's really sad. When I left Washington, we had a projected $5 trillion surplus. Okay? And my friends told me in Ohio, now that you and your buddies are leaving, they're going to spend it. I said, you can't spend $5 trillion. We could have had private accounts for all the young people, which would have given them not only Social Security, but the ability to grow with the strength of the economy. Guess who controlled Congress? Republican House, Republican Senate, and a Republican president. No one stood in the breach and remembered the people. And they blew $5 trillion, put us deeper in the hole. I like to say, Democrats, they love to spend, so do Republicans. They just feel guilty when they do it. But I mean, we have to think about this. Here's, at the end of the day, if we cannot control this fiscal policy, if we cannot reduce the taxes or control regulations, we're going to drift. And we're going to have a lousy economy, and these young people who want to realize their God-given purpose will be denied it. See, what politicians worry about too much is being popular. You can't, if that's your goal, is to be popular and loved, and you worry about the next election, get out. Just go away. Go do something else. You're in there to raise everybody and make hard choices. I've done it all my life. This is not rhetoric, folks. Go check my record. A lot of people run away from their record. Please go check my record, okay? And you'll see that it's true. We stand together, we'll have victory in this country. I'm telling you.
Chris Christie said there's no way to balance the budget without dealing with entitlements. We've always been told that's the third rail of politics. Well, hang on. He said to me, he goes, politicians already stole your Social Security. It's never been put in a lockbox. So does that mean you raise the eligibility age to 1 day before I die, and I've been paying in since I'm 12? Does that mean that you're going to means test it, and the government gets to confiscate all the money they said they'd give you back later in your life? Is that the only way to do it, or are there other ways to do it?
First of all, there is no third rail. If you think there's a third rail, don't run. You go in there to do something, okay? Can we fix Social Security? Yes. I'll tell you what it's going to mean. It's going to mean if you've been wealthy throughout your life, you will still get Social Security. You just won't get as much. And for those that really depend on it, they'll get their benefit.
So we'll legalize the government stealing money from some people.
Well, look, I mean, Sean, at the end of the day, we are where we are. I had a plan 17 years ago that would have fixed this program for 75 years, and they just wouldn't deal with it. So what I would suggest to is, I don't want to get into all the details, but there's basically IOUs, all of which are being paid back. The problem we have today is we have a lot of retirees that are living longer. That's a good thing, and fewer workers. I mean, it's a demographic issue. Let's deal with it, and let's be as fair as we can. On Medicare and Medicaid, I believe that we can have a system that actually gives us better quality care at lower prices. Look, I took Medicaid in Ohio from a 10.5% growth to 2.5% in my second year. We didn't cut one benefit, and we didn't take one person off the rolls. Isn't that amazing? Growing at 2.5%. And how do we do it? We innovated. Everything, I wish I had a smartphone. Everything in America, give me that smartphone here, okay?
It's an iPhone 6S.
When my kids were about 10 or 11, they said, "Daddy, what's that box over there?" He said, "What box?" Oh, I said, "Oh, that's where Superman changes his clothes, and Mom and Dad used to put coins in that thing." And they went, "No way," okay? Everything, let's Uberize the federal government. Let's Uberize all of government and bring technology, innovation, and the speed of business into everything we do in government. And have some guts.
Let me talk about...
By the way, just give you a good example.
As you can see, I'm doing a lot of work up here.
Oh, let me give you a good example. Uber, okay? Doing a great job, right? We all like Uber. Here's the thing. You realize in cities that the politicians and the regulators are lining up to try to snuff it out. You see, the fact of the matter is we need to welcome innovation and change. It makes us fresh, new, alive again. And we got to stop that kind of stuff.
I want to talk about Homeland Security. We have people chopping off people's heads, burning them alive. They are saying convert or die, and it raises questions about the safety and security of every American. ISIS is the modern-day evil in our time.
Yes.
Okay, is this an ongoing war? Do we have the ability to win it without boots on the ground?
No, we have to go. No, we have to get up. We have to get, just like what we did to push Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait. Look, here's my view. You get the Arabs, okay? You get Egypt and Jordan and Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states and others, and then bring our Western allies who are really sitting right there. We got to go in the air, on the ground, and we have to destroy ISIS.
So we're going
plain and
back
simple.
on the ground.
Yeah,
that means...
but look, get it, win it, destroy them, settle it down, and come home. Let them over there draw the map. Don't be policemen of the world.
Why aren't they doing it on their own?
Because they won't, Sean. They won't. So we have to lead or nothing's going to happen, and ISIS is going to grow bigger and dig in deeper. Now, let's talk about here at home. The FBI heads the Counterterrorism Task Force, along with Homeland Security, state and local officials, and that's good. And they do a great job of disrupting. And for everybody here, you see something, call somebody, please. Now, let me also tell you, we got this big fight going on between Apple and our intelligence community. If I were president of the United States, I would take Apple and the intelligence community, lock them in a room and say, you aren't coming out till you figure this out, and when you come out, you're not going to talk to the press about it, and we're not going to put it on the front page of a paper. We're just going to make it worse secure. That's what a leader does. And I might put Hannity in the room with him.
That'll work. But in all honesty, what I would like to see for America, I mean, we all watched our sons and daughters, and they shed blood in Ramadi and Fallujah and Mosul and Tikrit, and now those cities are in the hands of ISIS. Because just like Vietnam, once we politicize a war the way this president has and Hillary has and all these other people, you know, our sons and daughters died there. And I worry that I think we've got to advance and develop the technology where we don't have to send men and women over there to fight and win wars. Aren't we on the verge of cutting technology that will allow us to fight wars without going door to door to door and up-armored Humvees and dealing with IEDs?
Well, you know, Sean, you're right about that, because technology can play a really good role. But there's not going to be a substitute for people, at least in our lifetime, unfortunately, having to be on the battlefield. Now, I served in defense for 18 years, and Rumsfeld called me in after 9/11, and I helped out there. I just have to tell you the reality of it. And I think the people are prepared for this, because we look the other way. There's no negotiation, as you know, with ISIS. They hate our very existence, okay? So, but the key is, don't be a nation builder, and don't think you're going to convert all these people to our way of life. It's not going to happen.
Are we fighting wars too politically correct?
Oh, well,
Ted Cruz has said carpet bomb them. Donald Trump said bomb the living out of them. And I wonder if, you know, America is too concerned. Look, we care about human life. We're pro-life.
Correct.
But are we overly concerned about collateral damage to the point where we've tied our hands that we can't win?
No,
wars?
you go to war, you win the war, and you don't fool around with it. And secondly, unfortunately, you cannot win this from the air, Sean. You have to take ground. I mean, it just is the way it has to be. But let me also say,
we got to wrap up.
The United States should never involve itself in a civil war. And we also really fouled up this thing in Libya. We withdrew Gaddafi. Now ISIS is there. Hillary was behind it. I mean, when you think about Hillary's time as the Secretary of State, the whole world started doubting America. Now she wants to be the commander-in-chief. Give me a break, okay? It's an absurd consideration.
Do you think she will survive what is going on with the FBI and all the news? You know that Brian Pagliano just turned state's evidence in the sense that he was offered immunity after he pled the Fifth. He's the guy that built the server. It seems like a grand jury may very well have been convened. Do you think she's in deep legal trouble?
I mean, I wouldn't like to be in her position by any stretch of imagination, and I can't.
I wouldn't want to be married to Bill either. I agree.
Yeah, Okay. Well, here's the
Hang on a
thing,
sec.
though.
By the way, Governor Kasich, there's some really hot chicks over there if you want to go see them later. That's my Bill Clinton imitation. In case you didn't get
I wondered what. I thought Hannity had lost his mind. I know his wife. Okay. I'll have to give her a call, Sean, if she gets just part of this. You know.
Listen,
the way
Governor, I know that you've done a good job when you were on the House Budget Committee, and I know that what was your deficit when you took over in Ohio? We only have a second.
We were 20% in the whole of our operating budget.
All right, but you had a deficit of what?
$8 billion.
$8 billion. You now have a surplus of $2 billion.
$2 billion, yeah.
And you created how many? 400,000
over
jobs?
400,000, and we cut taxes more than anybody in the country, over $5
Pretty
billion.
impressive.
And we killed the death tax. And by the way, we're working on killing
I
death,
just
but
wish
we haven't made a lot of progress on that.
I think the Republican governors have governed conservatively. If Washington Republicans can learn something, I think it would be good for our country, and it would help all these kids out that we care about.
Leaders
Give
make
it up
a
for
difference.
Governor John
Leaders make
Kasich.
a difference. Thank you all. You're the best.
You're watching the Illinois Channel, an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.